I want to ask you, how do you envision the humanities at Marquette engaging in this task of reconceiving our human relations, both in terms of research and in curricular development?
Thanks. Yeah, so Jorge, you have a talent for asking these beautiful, multi-layered questions as befits a philosopher, right? So what I'll say today is, and what you've really done is beautifully unpack this idea of integral ecology and of living differently. So the way I'll answer today is this. I think that we need to focus on practices. And I think if you look at the literature on integration, I mentioned the National Academy's publications, for example, they note that the fields where there tends to be this cross-disciplinary integration are things like the plastic arts, engineering, and medicine. And it strikes me that one reason why those fields lend themselves to this kind of cross-cutting integration is that they involve labs and studios and operating rooms and practices, right? And so I think in the humanities, we have to really be intentional about what are the practices we are nurturing in ourselves and educating students to follow that will bring about a new future. So something like the design of cities and where our students will choose to live. Are they going to have a car? Are they going to try to work toward having better mass transit? Because when it comes down to it, I think a lot of this is a question of our desires. And the humanities are the fields that can speak to what those desires are. So I'll give you an example. Lately, it's all the rage to talk about, well, we all need to drive electric cars, which probably is a laudable goal, other than the fact that those car batteries have a lot of rare earth minerals that are, difficult to get, and they're by definition, not in plentiful supply. Interestingly, I just recently read an article about the fact that electric vehicles have to be heavier than other vehicles to account for these batteries. And so it means that collisions are more damaging and that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is maybe we can think outside the box and think about living together differently. Why are we all aiming to have a different kind of car? Why don't we try to aim for cities that are designed around a human scale, where we have mass transit or we can walk or ride a bike? I mean, it sounds silly, but these kinds of simple questions are the building blocks to that future that we hope to move toward. Something else that I think about a lot is, and it's one of the wonderful things about Milwaukee, if you live in the city center, you can get mass transit and you can walk and bike, and there's a lot of trails and a lot of green spaces, thanks to early city leaders who ensured that we have, for example, equitable access to the lakeshore. And when you walk, let's say you walk to do grocery shopping, as we do in my household, we're fortunate we can live near 3 grocery stores. You meet people, you talk to your neighbors, you talk to people who aren't your neighbors, you talk to the people who are hanging around outside of the store, and you have these human interactions. So again, this is a little bit of a daily mundane example, but the practices that you can engage in, day out, will become the building block of your life later on. So other practices like the practice of thoughtfulness, again, something that many of us struggle to do in this world that we live in, but so important. So how am I relating to myself and to the world and to others? So I think when it comes right down to it, the humanities have a lot to tell us about everything we've discussed. Our rich, kind of cultural heritage, the appreciation of what the past brings, and the study of history and the study of other languages and cultures and things. It's also a matter of translating that into day in, day out practices informed by values and by these kinds of questions that the humanities really spur us to ask. And discerning our way toward this future, which at this point is rather uncertain. We can probably guess that the future is not going to look much like the past or even the present. And again, one phrase that stayed with me is by the great American historian Nathan Hatch, and he talks about innovating on behalf of tradition. And I like that very much, because it's this idea of us being rooted in our past, in our traditions, and our cultural heritage, and then moving towards the future. We're innovating with those traditions behind us and supporting us. And that's what true innovation will be, is this new way of relating to ourselves, to one another.